Okay, so today the 9.1 lecture includes the distance formula and the midpoint formula. The distance formula is given to you up there. A lot of times, you might have it, distance equals. And then the midpoint formula, also given to you. Now, one of the things that I think gets confusing about the distance formula is why are there these x2s and x1s and y2s and y1s. What it's basically saying is identify your point when you're given a picture or information of the problem, there's point 1 and there's point 2. Now what your friend designates as point 1 might be different than what you designate as point 1. It isn't a big deal. Well, it's all about the order. So if you designate this to be point 1 and that one to be point 2, when you put it in the problem, just go, x2 minus x1 and the y2 minus the y1. It can be in any order, but you have to be consistent which point, you're subtracting from or which one you're using to subtract. Same thing with the distance, the midpoint formula, this is not really necessary to even write x1, x2 for the midpoint. Because the midpoint, right, is just doing the average. You're adding two things and dividing by 2. So you're finding the average x and you're finding the average y. That's it. And as we go through these problems, you'll want to just be careful. It's all about accuracy. More often than not, you guys lose points because you're not being accurate. So find the distance from 9,4 to 7, -6, and the midpoint between them. So if I was going to do the distance formula, I would just set it up as, I typically just go in the order that they're given to me. So a lot of times I'll just go 9 minus 7. So I'm taking the x minus the next x, square it. Then you have to go 4 minus -6. Now a lot of you with the double negative, as you write them down, you might simplify that on your own. I just write it out for the lecture that way. 9 minus 7 is -2 squared, and 4 plus 6 is 10 squared, and I'm getting the square root of 104. Because what's -2 squared?
4.
What's 10 squared?
100.
100, so that's 104. The nice exact value would be 4 times 26, which is 2 root 26. Can somebody give me the decimal? Can somebody give me the decimal, please? 10.2. Now if we go over to the midpoint, average x, average y. So a couple of things about the midpoint. One, it's an average. Add them, divide by 2. A lot of students kind of get mixed up and you're subtracting in the distance formula and all of a sudden you're not adding in the midpoint formula. So keep those straight. The second thing is you're finding an x and a y. You're actually finding a dot, a point. So it's an x, y value. So 9 plus 7 divided by 2, and 4 plus a -6 divided by 2. Again, I'm writing the double sign there. You don't have to do that. 4 plus -6 is the same thing as 4 minus 6. So what's 9 plus 7? Divide by 2. And 4 minus 6? -2 divided by 2, -1. Now I'm going to show you something quickly. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. 9, 4 and 7, negative 6. Those are approximately the 2 points that they gave us. 9 to the right, up 4, 7 to the right, down 6. I see a lot of students make mistakes on the midpoint formula, and it's really an easy formula to work with, right? It's just adding and dividing by 2, which you guys have been working on since you were 3rd and 4th graders. So it's more of just a not paying attention error that you make. So if I put those 2 dots, where approximately would our midpoint be? By looking at the picture, you really expect your answer to be somewhere in that area, right? And when people do this, sometimes I get, they'll do 9 plus 7 and write down the negative. But a lot of times what you'll do is you'll forget the negative sign here, and you might, because I think I heard some of you yell out, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So maybe they go to the right 8 and up 1. Can my midpoint be there?
No.
And how long would it take you guys? So on the quiz on Wednesday, don't be in such a hurry to turn it in. Make sure you get all the points. What could we do? Sketch this picture quick off to the side just to make sure you're getting in the right location. When you type it, or when you graph the 8, negative 1, 8, negative 1 would be about right there. That's a much better look for the midpoint, that red dot. So check your work. A circle is drawn on a coordinate plane with the endpoints of the diameter being 5, 9, 7, negative 7. 5, 9, negative 7, negative 7. So we graph those. Done. Find the center. Well, what do they talk about? If this is a circle, if this is a circle, what do they mean by find the center?
Find the midpoint.
Because it's a diameter, the line from dot to dot that they gave us will go through the center, right? That's what a diameter means. So please find the midpoint with somebody sitting near you. Actually draw the midpoint on the graph to make sure it's going to work. Alright, so if somebody got negative 1, 1. I'm going to graph that with the blue dot. We could go negative 1, 1. Here would be the approximate diameter. It looks okay. Graphing it does not guarantee that you have the right answer or anything, but it looks all right.
I did mine as negative 6 or negative 6, 7, and so
Okay.
I had the right answer.
Now we're going to find the radius of the circle. So what do they mean by finding the radius? Somebody tell me what we're going to do.
We'll do the top.
Janae.
Negative 1 is 1 and then 1.
You're only finding the distance from the center to one of the points. So if I were you, I would talk to the person sitting next to you and say, I'll do negative 1, 1 to the bottom point. You do negative 1, 1 to the top point. So you're going to work with different numbers and then make sure you come up with the same distance at the end. That's how I would do it. So you're working with somebody next to you to do that. What are we getting for the distance? 10? Let's just double check one of these. 5 minus negative 7 is 12. 12 squared is 144. 9 minus a negative 7 is 16. What's 16 squared?
256.
It's going to be way more than 10. 144 plus 256 is 400.
That's not.
Square root of 20 or square root of 400
It's 20.
is, oh, you know what I wrote down?
Yeah.
You're silly goose.
Whatever. I got 20. Divide by 2 and I get my 10. So what I wrote down are the two endpoints of the diameter, and I forgot to use my midpoint. Sorry. But it's the same thing. So you guys should have one of the points to the midpoint. I did endpoints of the diameter, both different directions, depending on what you do. But when I get done, that's my distance of my diameter, 20. So we should be getting 10, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Now, one of the things that was pointed out while you guys were working, in the past you may have had a teacher that for distance formulas might have had you draw triangles. You could have certainly done, one here, X and a Y, or maybe do this X and this Y. However you do it, you're subtracting those X's. Subtract the Y's and you're finding the distance from vertex to vertex, or the corners of these triangles, the angles, right? Well, what have you set up? What are the purple things gonna set up for you? When you have right triangles, what's it called? Pythagorean theorem, right? So ultimately what you're doing is a form of the Pythagorean theorem when you do your distance formula.